Gentlemen, I'm honoured to be joined with you once again. Today we're going to be talking about some breaking news that's coming out fresh out of Portugal. Portugal is one of the most popular countries, not only in Europe, but also in the world in regards to citizenship, diversification. But that might now change because the government has officially announced that they're going to be increasing the amount of time you have to spend in the country, while also changing and tweaking and even adding some new requirements as well that are monumental for you to know. Because as I said, Portugal, one of the most popular options in Europe. Many people have done the Portuguese program. There are many options out there for Portugal as well that will also be going over. But with these changes, we have to wonder, is Portugal still going to be one of the most popular hotspots in Europe? So Portugal, up until this point, I would argue was in the similar vicinity to that of the Irish passport. Was it as good? No. But it was very well respected. It still is very well respected. I don't think that's going to go down, frankly. Many people find Portugal to be a very desirable country, nice country. It's not in the Mediterranean, so I won't call it a Mediterranean country, but it's got a Mediterranean lifestyle, aesthetic, what have you. I love Portugal. I've been to Portugal before. I think it's an amazing country. Would I live in Portugal in the future? Absolutely. But with these new requirements, we have to wonder, okay, is this reputation going to last forever? Because up until this point, a lot of people could actually exploit Portugal in regard to getting citizenship, whether they were doing the Golden Visa program or many other programs out there, which are still in place. Portugal was very well diversified in regards to how you can actually move to the country and get citizenship. You could have done the Golden Visa program. You could have just moved there as an EU citizen. You could have moved there as a non-EU immigrant with the D7 visa, for example. You could have also, been of a, well, you can't really change your ancestry, but if you were from a Sephardic Jewish ancestry and you could verify that you had family ties in Portugal, then you could get Portuguese citizenship as sort of a method of compensation that Portugal and Spain I don't believe does it anymore. Portugal still does on paper do it, although the amount of people getting approved via the Sephardic Jewish route isn't that much, to be honest. But if you could prove that you were Sephardic Jewish with ties to Portugal from like 300 years ago, what have you, you could get Portuguese citizenship with minimal requirements. You'd have to prove a lot of documents to verify that you are who you say you are, but beyond that, you didn't have to live in the country. Okay, it would have helped if you spoke Portuguese, but it wasn't a monumentally important thing for you to be able to know if you were going to do the Sephardic Jewish route. Also, if you were to do the Golden Visa or any type of other visa, there was a great loophole with Portugal, which I imagine they will get rid of now, since even for me, this was quite ridiculous, where the residency period didn't begin when you got your visa approved or when you entered Portugal, when you crossed the border, right, what have you, when you officially settled in Portugal. Your residency requirement, your residency timeline began from the date of your visa application. So, for example, up until this point, if I were to apply for a Portuguese visa today, I wouldn't need one, but let's say I would. If I were to apply for one today and it would only get approved in 2 years, my residency wouldn't begin 2 years from now. I would already have 2 years done out of the 7 years, 5 years, 7 years, I believe. Whereas now I imagine they're going to get rid of that. Frankly, for me, that was also ridiculous. Your residency shouldn't begin when you apply for the visa. Your residency should begin when you actually land in the country, when you begin your life in that country. That, to me, that was ridiculous. So I have no problem with them getting rid of this at all. Because when I look online about what people are saying about these new requirements, yes, naturally, I also have concerns which I'll touch upon in due course. But to be honest here, this really isn't that bad. Portugal hasn't done something insane where they've outright banned all nationality. They've banned a certain nationality or certain group of nationalities, for example, from getting the visa. For example, Portugal was still quite friendly, as Spain was, as Cyprus is, I believe. If you're Russian, you could move to Portugal in theory. You could do that. So Portugal hasn't done something insane. They've just tightened their citizenship requirements. They've made it a little bit more difficult. Now, do I like every single policy? No. But all of them are not the end of the world. For example, for the majority of people who don't come from a former Portuguese-speaking colony, so if you're not from a country like Brazil, Angola, Cape Verde, I imagine Macau, although Macau they haven't specified, you have to live in Portugal for 7 years total with actual residence. It's not that you apply for the visa, it takes 2 years, and that's already 2 years, and they only live in 5 years in the country. No, 7 years actually in the country. And if you're not from a Portuguese-speaking country, a former colony of Portugal, it's now 10 years. So it's equivalent to that of Spain. Now, I don't really like this option, to be honest, in regards to 10 years residency. Frankly, for me, 10 years is way too much. They often say that it's going to make it more difficult. What is it, though? Because they often say this is to tackle illegal immigration, that they're going to increase the requirements to 10 years. If you're living in a country illegally and you're not going to get caught, I guarantee you'll also live there for 10 years. So that doesn't really make sense to me. Because if you're not going to get caught, if you're not going to get deported, and you have broken the law and you're in the country illegally, 5 years, 10 years, numbers are pretty obsolete for someone like that. So that to me isn't a good enough deterrent. It's mainly a deterrent for people who are going to go there legally, going to do it the right way, going to bring value to the country, what have you. So for me, that's not a major thing that I'm fond of. The rest I have no problems with. For example, they now have language requirements. Fully agree with that. If you want to live in Portugal and you want to become a Portuguese citizen and you don't speak a word of Portuguese, you don't even know how to say obrigado, like, is Portugal even a good option for you? You should also have knowledge on Portuguese culture. Again, absolutely no problem with that. Frankly, I agree with that. I believe Norway had a similar policy back in the day where if you wanted to maintain your residency and you were not from a European country, even though I think they should also do it for European countries too, but if you were an asylum seeker in Norway, from a Middle Eastern country, I think specifically, you had to take classes on the Norwegian language and Norwegian culture too. No problem. I agree with that. I think if you're going to live in Portugal and you want to set up a life in Portugal and you don't know any Portuguese and you don't even know what their culture or history is, you don't even know about like regime change in Portugal, what have you, their colonial empire, you don't know anything, right? That's not good, to be honest. If you don't even know where it is on the map, don't go to Portugal. So no problem with that. Also, Portugal, up until now, if you had a criminal record, but you didn't go to prison for longer than 3 years, you could still qualify for this. Now, to me, that was kind of insane. 1 year, I could maybe understand. Most countries have this thing where if you were in prison for under 1 year, you could still qualify for most visas. Frankly, I don't really agree with that either. Portugal has done something which I fully agree with, that if you have a criminal record and you were proven to be guilty, like it's 100% obvious that you're guilty and it wasn't like a miscarriage of justice, then you're not going to qualify for this program. If you've done any time in prison, you're not going to qualify for Portugal any further. You have to have a 100% clean criminal record. Again, no real problem with that, to be honest. These are the major things that I don't have issues with. What I do have issues with, to be honest, is the 10-year residence requirement, because the argument that they've said is that it allows you to feel like you're part of a community. Okay, well, that's a double-edged sword, because you might want to try and integrate. I'll say this as an immigrant. You might want to try and integrate, but if the community doesn't want to accept you, you're not integrating very well. Also, if it takes someone, Portuguese is not a difficult language. If you are coming from a country where you already speak English, or you speak a language that's in a similar family to that of Portuguese, such as French, Spanish, Latin, right, what have you, Romanian even, it shouldn't take you 10 years to learn the language. Are you going to be perfect in it in 5 years? No. But native speakers make mistakes all the time. Also, I don't think you need 10 years to be able to understand the Portuguese culture. Hell, you get a good grasp of it when you're there for a week on a vacation, yet alone living there for multiple years. In my eyes, in my opinion, and in my experience as well, you don't really need more than 3 years to understand the culture of the country. Are you going to know everything? Maybe not. But in order to qualify for the citizenship, in order to pass the citizenship test, 3 years is absolutely more than enough. You might have to do a little bit of reading before your test, no problem with that. But to this idea that it's going to take you 10 years to understand the culture and the language, absolutely not. Frankly, I think if it does, a bit of a skill issue. To be honest, if you do come from a country that already has a language similar to Portugal, if you're speaking Pashto, it might take 10 years. Those are monumentally different languages. But if you speak English, if you speak Spanish, it really shouldn't take 10 years, to be honest. So that's something that I don't think is the best thing in the world, but also 10 years in general, a little bit extreme. I think 5 years, 7 years at a push is perfectly satisfactory. Also, I'm not too fond of this notion that if you are from a country that is formerly part of the Portuguese Empire, you have different requirements. I think it should be fair for everyone. It should be outright 5, 7 years, or even 10 years. I don't agree that it should be 10 years, but if we're going to keep everyone equal here, it should be 10 years for everyone. So that to me is also a little bit of an issue. And another thing, this is something that I actually haven't heard a lot of people talk about, but I'll bring it up here since I've touched upon this before, is that the people in Portugal who are celebrating this, fine, I happen to agree with this policy. I think if you want to get Portuguese citizenship, you should be able to prove that you do deserve it. It shouldn't be something that you're entitled to. You have to sort of verify that you do deserve the passport. No problem with that. But the politicians, what they're saying, to me is an issue, because they're actually insulting you as a sovereign individual. And in my eyes, they're also insulting the Portuguese people, because this to me is always an issue when it comes to nationalism, national pride. Is that whenever they say, oh yeah, the Portuguese passport is something of a community, first of all, no, it's not. We're in a global market now. I have friends all over the world. I don't just make friends with people who have the same passport as me. That is stupid. So that doesn't make sense anyway. Also, this notion of being proud of nationalism, and then a lot of these politicians, such as in this article here, they say that in these difficult times, please understand something. Whenever a politician or some elitist online or what have you says that we are in difficult times, they don't mean we as in you and I. They mean we as in just you. It's not going to be difficult for them. It's not difficult times for them. So they're insulting you. They're patronizing you here from my perspective. Also, nationalism for me is not the best option in the world. I believe in passport diversification. I have multiple passports. I speak multiple languages. I can't be a nationalist. That doesn't really operate. I can be happy that certain countries have done certain things, but to be blindly loyal to a country, that's not how I operate. And to be fair, that's not what Portugal's asking. That's not what any country realistically is asking. But it's something to be aware of, that with the increase in nationalism, citizenship diversification might not be as popular anymore. It's never as popular among the majority of people because of what the media purports. But it's something to be aware of, definitely, for sure. Those for me are the major concerns. However, in general, a lot of fear mongering about this. Portugal is now the worst passport in the world. Absolutely not. Like if we have to compare in Europe, Portugal is still one of the goated ones out there. Has it gone down a peg or two if this 10-year residence requirement is implemented? Yes, absolutely. The rest, knowing Portuguese, understanding the culture, and no criminal record. If you have a problem with any of that, bit of a red flag in my eyes. Like, you can have a problem with the 10-year residency, but to go, no, I think criminals should be allowed to live in Portugal. What? No, I think you should be allowed to get citizenship in Portugal and not speak. What? What do you mean? That doesn't make sense to me. But we can have a debate in the comments. Absolutely. That's fine. But to me, the only issue here is the 10 years. Also, I think this sets a bad precedent because getting citizenship in countries is now more difficult, so who knows if this will go up to 15 years in the future, 20 years, 30 years like San Marino or Andorra. Bit of fear-mongering there on my part, to be honest, so I don't think that would happen, but it is something to know where whenever someone makes getting citizenship harder to get, they're not making it for the best interest of you as a sovereign individual, they're making it for the best interest of their nation, which is fine. But for you as a sovereign individual who wants to maximize freedom, if you think on that operating field, it's not going to give you any benefits. Might be beneficial for the country, might deter some bad people from getting citizenship in the country. But again, like I said, if you're in Portugal illegally, if you're in any country illegally, and you've done well hiding under the radar for 5 years, is 10 years really going to be that difficult? So to me, increasing the residence requirements isn't that large of a deterrent to catch out the right people that the government evidently wants to catch out, rightfully so. So for me, this is sort of the wrong prescription for the problem. Let me know what you think about this program. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Let me know down in the comments below whether you think this is a good thing, a bad thing, or are you somewhere like me where you're in the middle? You don't have problems with everything, but some things are a little bit concerned. Let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe to the channel as well, and hopefully see you in the next one. But until then, eternal victory to the free people.